Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our meeting. I'm Jean James, President of the Canberra Jung Society. Thank you for joining us again here at MacKillop House and online. Let us first acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. This evening, we're delighted to welcome back our very own Kirstin Robertson-Gillam, Vice President of the Jung Society, well known here as a presenter and loyal supporter of our various activities. This time, in recognition of the World Labyrinth Day tomorrow, Kirstin will talk about walking the psyche, the labyrinth as a living map of the self, about Jung's connection with labyrinth, tracing their journey from Bronze Age carvings and various myths to the great medieval pilgrimage labyrinths of Europe and into the consulting room of the modern psyche. Dr Kirstin Robertson-Gillam has a BA degree in psychology, musicology majors. She has a Master of Counselling, a Master of Arts, and a PhD in reducing depression with choir therapy in later life. If you're here on Zoom, please remain muted while Kirstin is speaking. Use Zoom chat for comments and we'll open up later for discussion. Following Kirstin's presentation, we'll have a short break for supper and resume for discussion and questions, finishing by 10 p.m. Note that we'll be recording this event for later reference. Thank you, Kirstin. Lovely to see you today. Welcome, everyone. That's not too bad, is it? Okay. So we're going to have a little walk in World Labyrinth tonight, symbolically. Anybody walked the labyrinth at all? Oh, good. Well, a few people have. So I'll be interested in hearing your experiences. And tomorrow, if those of you who can come, we're going to be having a workshop labyrinth day, just walking the labyrinth at Barton, which is that one. Just on your cup. Here we are all walking. I've timed it. 16 to 20 minutes in and out, round and back. But then that doesn't count for sitting in the middle. So if a lot of us are doing it, then we're going to have to slow it right down. So we're probably looking around about an hour by the time people get around, depending on how many people come. But it's always a lovely thing to walk the labyrinth. Something always changes when you walk the labyrinth. It's a very, very long, ancient history. It has very, very long. And I'm not going to be able to see.
Recording in progress.
Leave. Am I being rude to anybody? No. That's better. Okay. I need to acknowledge that John has done these PowerPoints for me. He's very good at PowerPoints. Now, tomorrow, we're meeting at 12, but we remember that around the world, internationally, at 1 p.m, in every country of the world, there will be people walking the labyrinth. So we're going to be part of that, being International Labyrinth Day tomorrow. So that'll be a nice experience. Jung mentioned labyrinths several times in his work. I'm not sure whether he ever walked one. I'm sure he did. Here's a quote from Memories, Dreams and Discoveries.
Walking the labyrinth is a symbolic representation of the individuation process of the journey to self-discovery. And as always, it's an open eye meditation, and anything can happen. And things do happen when you walk the labyrinth. If you do it in a meditative way and you take whatever you need to take. So tonight we've got finger labyrinths here. After supper we're going to do a finger labyrinth walk, and we have 3 questions for you to take and look at as you walk the labyrinth in with your finger. So that might whet your appetite for coming tomorrow and experiencing it. And I don't. Now somebody said there might be rain, but I hope not. 40% chance of rain. 40%. 80% when? Oh, well, we're not walking the labyrinth on Sunday, thank goodness. So I don't really know if it's pouring with rain, we probably won't do it. It's only 2 hours anyway, so we should be right in case. But as you can see, if you go back to the slide that shows the labyrinth walk, the bottom one, can you go back? You can see is that the bottom one? No. Oh, okay. The one that we're going to walk on doesn't have concrete. It's just earth. So that means if it's going to be pouring with rain, it might be a bit muddy. We hope it won't. Jung considered the labyrinth. If you walk it, it promotes mindfulness. And I can really vouch for that because it does. It somehow changes you to just walk it. Even if you haven't got anything to think about when you walk in there, but just commune with nature. Something, you come out of it in a different way than when you go in. And that's always a nice discovery to find what insights. There's a little stone bench in the middle that you can sit down in and allow your mind to run free. And you need to take it meditatively and slowly. Jung said that walking the labyrinth promotes mindfulness, self-compassion, and helps us connect with nature. Well, I certainly agree with him. It's a very nice thing to do. So what is the labyrinth? A description of a labyrinth. It's been around a very long time. It goes way back into before medieval times. And you can find labyrinths all around the world. So it must be a symbol, an archetype, I think, of what it really means. So I'm just going to go into a little bit of that kind of thing. Is looking at unraveling. What is it? It's a single path, but it's not a maze. Now, a maze is something that you, like in the Harry Potter movies, you've got to find your way out. With a labyrinth, there's one way in and one way out, and it's very clear. So you just follow the path. So the labyrinth word comes from the Greek word labrys, which is a double-headed stone axe. And it's a weapon that the ancient Amazonians used, and it symbolises the early forms of matriarchal society before those men came and took us over. You know? Sorry, men. We are now a patriarchal society. I don't really know what the difference would be. I've never lived in one. But any ideas? No? Of what a matriarchal society would be like? Anyway, it's associated with the act of creation. And that's associated with women because women are very involved in the act of creation. And the making by hand of things, creating things from yourself and things rising of creation. The womb and the labrys, which is the axe, are symbols of female and male, mother and father. So we have the two there, the male and the female. The labyrinth's a model of rebirth or destiny. So to walk the labyrinth is to become a pilgrim. So if anyone turns up tomorrow, you need to choose to become a pilgrim, which is a very nice thing to do. The pilgrim means that we leave our place of familiarity to take a risk to entering a new land. So there are lots of pilgrims who walk across the north of Spain and do the, what's the walk called? Across the, yeah, the Domingo. Yeah, that one. And they do it all the time. And they come back changed. So we can do it in our little place. There are 11 different labyrinths here in Canberra. But I like this one. I like the one in Barton. It's earthy. You're walking on the earth. And I like the feel of that. So the risk is that it's the symbol of entering into the darkness of our inner demons. And we all have them whether we like them or not. And to face them. And then to come out to conquer them, to conquer our inner demons, and to come out after the labyrinth walk, victorious. In medieval times, the labyrinth was a feature of great convenience, and you can find, has anyone been to shopping? Oh, what a shame. You do that, that'd be lovely. Yes, we've been to the one and it's a very big one, isn't it? The labyrinth in Sharp, very big one. It takes a long time to, over an hour, I think, if you want to walk it properly. So in Christianity early, that's our tradition. It became an emblem of what Christians would see of Jerusalem being the place of the holy place of Jesus, the pilgrimage site to find yourself. It's in miniature, and the monks used to get this. The monks used to travel on their knees. Can you imagine it? I hate to think what their knees would be like. Can they walk after that? Anyway, each labyrinth pattern consists of two elements. There's the meander, so the path is convoluted, and then just meanders. And then there's the spiral that goes round and up. Sort of a spiral. And a path, the meander is pathway, the green time, which while linear mustn't not be a simple path, it's not to be simple. It's intricately coiled, so it doubles back an unexpected collapse. And to meander, the labyrinth is an open-minded place. And it can take as long as the traveller needs to explore themselves on its journey. And some travellers can spend up to an hour or more walking the labyrinth and working on very retreats. And once you get into the centre, you take your issues back. Come on, you should go. You certainly want the joy of just being in nature at the beginning. That's another method as well. The spiral represents the primal image of creation, and it's found everywhere, of course. Spirals, the double meanings of the DNA molecule, we've got that inside us. The unfolding frond of a fern, the spinning galaxy itself. It's all spiral. Everything's spiral. And the plastic labyrinth is the same part. So it's underneath. This resembles the labia of women, the outer rim, the cervix, and the course of the inner part of the womb. So it's a very, very female in that regard. So it's womb-like. Now, it's so impossibly ancient, the origins, it's hard to really work out how far back we go. But as we take a lot of our myths and legends and our wisdom from the ancient Greeks, we are going to be looking at that more than any other culture, because that's where we find ourselves. The early Greeks provided us with a 7-course visual pattern. As you can see, the pattern, and you start and you walk, and you see that there's a sort of okay? Yeah. The labyrinth word is shrouded in mystery because it was a loan word that came from the ancient semi-mythical Minoans. Have you heard of the Minoans? The
Yes.
people of King Midas.
And the
They were
heart.
believed to have inhabited Crete before the Greeks. Many other words ending in NTH, such as the hyacinth flower. And can you think of any other words? I'd love to hear you come up with any. They also carry this mysterious connection. So whenever you encounter an English word with NTH at the end, you can be pretty sure it'll have some resemblance, some connotation with the labyrinth and what it entails. It's special. So the Greeks turned to their myths in order to explain this long distance connection to the Minoans, because there's very little history established to establish the existence of Minoans before the Greeks on Crete. So let's have a look at the Greek myth behind the labyrinth. It has a long and fascinating history. I hope you like history, because I love it. Ancient origins. It goes right back to the Bronze Age, around 2000 to 1500 BCE. And it was found in various ancient cultures, including Greece, Crete, Egypt, and India. The most famous ancient labyrinth is the mythical Cretan labyrinth, associated with the legend of the Minotaur, a half-man, half-bull creature who lived in the centre, and the hero, Theseus. So we're going to jump into that myth right now in a little moment. It also through the classical period in ancient Greece and Rome, labyrinths were incorporated into various architectural structures like palaces, tombs, and temples. And they were often used in religious ceremonies and rituals, representing spiritual journeys, initiation rites, symbolic passages from one stage of consciousness to another. So the ancient Greeks did use this as initiation rite for young people, which was a bit sad story I'll go into in a minute. In the medieval Europe times, during the Middle Ages, labyrinths were widely adopted in Christian churches and cathedrals, and they were often constructed in very elaborate, intricate patterns on the floors or walls. These church labyrinths were used for contemplative walking and prayer, serving as a symbolic pilgrimage for those unable to undertake physical pilgrimages. Then we come to the Renaissance and Baroque era. And in these times, labyrinths became popular features in gardens and landscaping designs, in those big houses they used to have, the rich ones, particularly in Europe. Elaborate maze-like gardens were created for recreational purposes, often incorporating hedges, walls, or paths to create intricate patterns and challenges. And up to the present time, in the late 20th century, there was a resurgence of interest in labyrinths. Many new designs and constructions appeared in public places, in parks and spiritual centres. So there's lots of labyrinths around. As I said, 11 just in Canberra. It's really surprising because most of us don't even realise that, you know? It's quite interesting. So these are places where we can go and we can meditate. It's a walking open eye meditation. And it helps with stress relief and personal growth, as well as artistic and educational purposes. So it represents various cultural, religious, recreational aspects of different human societies right across different eras. So here we come to the ancient Minotaur story. King Midas. He was a bit of a cruel man, but they all were back then, weren't they? Mm-hmm. King Midas ruled over ancient Aegean lands. Theseus was the son of King Aegeus of Athens and of Arethra, daughter of the king of Troezen. He was raised by his mother in Troezen, and when he reached manhood, he was ordered to proceed to Athens and present himself to his father, the king. So obviously that's how they did it in those days. The fathers had nothing to do with the raising of their children, even if it was an heir. Before the birth, as Theseus was parting with Arethra, he placed his sword and shoes under a large stone and directed her to send his son to him when he became strong enough to roll it away. Theseus did this with ease after Arethra had led him to the stone and he had removed it, taking the sword and its shoes from underneath, and so he began his journey. The roads were infested with robbers. Theseus' grandfather, King Minos, pressed him to urgently take the shorter and safer route back to his father's country by the sea. But, he was a young man, he wanted excitement. So he wanted to be a hero. And he was eager to signalise himself to Hercules, who was very famous throughout all of Greece at the time. He wanted to be Hercules too, number 2. So he decided to take the very perilous and adventurous route by land. As he was walking through the land, his first victory was to confront Periphetes, the son of Vulcan, who all travellers stood in terror of. And he conquered him, he slayed him with his club, and he took it as a memorial of his first victory. Yay! After many battles were won on the journey, Theseus was acknowledged by his father, King Aegeus, as his successor. The Athenians were at the time in deep affliction because of this Minotaur. Now, the Minotaur, I don't know of too many Greek stories about Minotaurs, but this one's a big one. The Minotaur was a monster with a bull's body and a human head. And it was the result of a very unfortunate union between a woman.
The other way around, I think. A human body and the bull's head.
That's right, you're right. That's a typo. Money reading, you're right. Thank you. It was a very strong and fierce animal, and everyone was terrified of it because it loved to eat human flesh. So the king ordered a craftsman, an artisan called Daedalus, to construct something to keep this monster in check. And he is the one that constructed and planned and designed the labyrinth so that the monster couldn't get out. It was so artfully constructed that anyone who was enclosed in it couldn't get out without assistance, particularly when it was a monster that didn't have too many brains, except to eat everything. The Athenians were forced to pay tribute to King Minos of Crete by sacrificing 7 maidens and 7 youths every year to feed the Minotaur and keep it happy. You would think that 7 maidens and 7 youths over a year is not much food, wouldn't you? Actually, when you think about it. Anyway, apparently it satisfied them, the Minotaur. These 7 young men and 7 young women were at the cusp of their adulthood. This is the sad part of the story. They were led to Crete, where Minos ruled, and placed in a subterranean maze of twisted paths that they called the labyrinth. At the centre was imprisoned the source of their ultimate doom, the half-man, half-bull Minotaur, with his constant profane hunger for human flesh. The Minotaur was a punishment for Minos' own disrespect to the gods. These sacrifices went unchallenged for a very long time until the hero Theseus offers himself freely in place of one of the chosen 14. He was brave. He would have definitely perished if it hadn't have been for Ariadne. Now, I'm sure you know who Ariadne is. Anyone recognise Ariadne? She was the goddess of the string. She gave a string. So Ariadne was a very clever girl, and she'd fallen in love with Theseus, and she didn't want him to die. So she went to him at night in the prison and taught him the secret paths of the labyrinths, warning him of the doom that lay ahead at the centre. And because she was Ariadne, the spider woman with her web, she enabled Theseus to find his way out because she gave him a piece of string so he could follow it. So she had the string. He took the string in with him. So, according to Campbell, 1988, Spider-Woman with her web can control the movements of the sun. She's very strong. The hero hosts come under the protection of Cosmic Mother cannot be harmed. So the thread of Ariadne brought Theseus safely through the journey to the Labyrinth centre, where, of course, he slew the Minotaur, very strong, and found his way out with Ariadne's thread. If he hadn't have had Ariadne's thread, he may not have found his way out. She, on the other hand, being a woman, made him promise to marry her. And what do you think happened? He dumped her on the island of Delos. I don't think that was a very nice thing to do. That was a long time ago. So history indicates the early Minoans may have created the initial myth of the labyrinth. And in this story, the labyrinth was set in a subterranean place of worship, involving Minoan, the central goddess, the powerful Popnia Theron, a queen whose worship linked humankind to the natural world. In this mythical story, walking the labyrinth's twisting paths is undertaken only by the pure of heart and presumably chosen through rituals. Now, just to digress for a minute, Robert might, I don't know about you, Robert, but when I was brought up, when I was brought up, my father was Presbyterian minister, and he taught that when we dedicated our lives to Jesus, we would have to be cleansed, and we would have to confess before every communion, which was only 3 monthly in the Presbyterian Church. Are you aware of that ritual?
It's normal for the Catholic Church. Used to be normal for the Catholic Church. Had to confess when you're
That's right. It's the same thing, but the Presbyterians had it different. They believed that you only have communion every 3 months, so that you can prepare yourself and be cleansed before you take communion and you give your life to Christ. So it's like doing that, dedicating your life to Christ. Have you not heard of that? Yeah, I thought you might.
It's one of the elements of baptism, often, of course.
That's right.
And that's one of the issues, of course, with infant baptism.
Yeah.
Where the congregation will say, we'll help this person, but the baby can't expect to do it themselves.
That's right. And, interestingly, the Presbyterians don't have that. And I'm not quite sure why, but they don't. Anyway, we never had any godfathers or godmothers. My father didn't believe in them. All right, so let's get back to the story. That was just a little diversion. So in this mythical story, walking the labyrinth's twisting paths is undertaken only by the pure of heart, as I said. And this is believed to possibly reflect the twisting motion of the stars in the night sky. Twisting. Has anyone seen how they twist? I don't very often look up in the night sky. I have to do that, thereby confusing evil powers and casting off dark thoughts from the walker. And we wouldn't want to walk the labyrinth here at night. We might fall. Only the pure of mind and spirit were allowed to access the central chamber and experience the healing influence of the Minoan goddess. Each pilgrim would take a path separately and spend time in the centre before following the path out of the deep, dark cave. The labyrinth is not simply a maze to be solved. You don't solve a labyrinth like a maze, because, as I said before, you walk in and you walk out. But there are visual depictions of how both labyrinths and mazes share twisted corridors and sinuous motions. The maze has a different entrance and exit, as illustrated in Harry Potter. The maze is a puzzle that has to be solved. On the other hand, the labyrinth is not a puzzle. It is a single course leading directly to the central space in the same path. It does have unexpected turns along the way, but you know that if you just keep following it, it'll get you to the centre and it'll lead you out again. This difference helps to explain an unexpected element to the meanings of the labyrinth, because although the Greek story of Theseus is one of violence and heroism. The other story, possibly derived from the early Minoans, who inherited the land before the Greeks and was known to be a matriarchal society, was one of transformation of quietness and sacredness, which is what we are focusing on with this, because that's what we're looking for. But this is an open-eye meditation practice. Theseus slew the Minotaur, it's getting back to the story, and escaped from the labyrinth with the help of Ariadne, and took her with him as his companion, and they sailed for Athens, but see, he left her behind, he dumped her. On their way, they stopped off at the island of Naxos, where Theseus abandoned Ariadne, leaving her asleep. His excuse for abandoning her was that the Greek goddess of winsome warfare crafts, Minerva, commanded him to carry out this ungrateful treatment of his benefactress. And I said to myself, why would he listen to that anyway? Obviously thought that was a good idea. As he approached the coast of Attica, Theseus forgot the signal that was appointed by his father to send and to raise the flag to indicate victory. That was supposed to happen. A white flag was supposed to go up. Instead, he forgot, and the black sails were still up in, and the old king said, "Oh no, he's died, he's perished," and the old king killed himself as a result. So that meant that once Theseus arrived and berthed it and put the ship to rest, he became the king of Athens instead of his father. I've got a few comments about that. Dave?
Worry about the GNC.
No. Well, yes, I do, but I've forgotten it.
Oh, so King Theseus.
Aegeus, it's Aegeus.
Oh,
Oh, that's right.
in this story,
Yeah.
the Aegean Sea is named after him. So, and so it just shows how central the story of Labyrinth
Very.
to Greek mythology.
It is very different. Yeah, absolutely. So, Daedalus, very skilled artisan. And he worked out the labyrinth, and he helped Theseus navigate it and escape while housing the dreaded Minotaur, the bull that loved to eat human flesh. And he only managed it by the thread from Ariadne, and they called it the claw. I don't know why, do you know? The labyrinth was an endless of numberless winding passages and turnings, and openings into one another, seemingly having no beginning and no end. Daedalus built the labyrinth for King Midas, but he later lost favour with him and was imprisoned in a tower, unable to escape. That was a bit sad. However, Daedalus was very creative, and so he constructed a mechanism whereby he fabricated wings to use for himself and his young son Icarus. Now he told Icarus, as fathers do, not to go too close to the land because the damp will clog his wings. And he also told him, don't go too high to the sun because the heat will melt the wings. So they both flew off, and Icarus was having such a wonderful time, he wanted more adventure. So he soared upwards to reach the heavens. And the blazing sun melted the wax, and they fell off, taking Icarus with them. Daedalus bitterly lamented his son's death and called the land Icaria in his memory. He arrived safely in Sicily, where he built a temple to Apollo and hung up his wings as an offering to the god. And that's a bit sad. So, you know, the folly of youth, I suppose you could say. You don't listen to your father. Anyway, now the symbolism of the story. Do you want to give one? This refers to the labyrinth itself. It's the movement. It's a moving, open-eye meditation. Now, as you take your issues with you on your labyrinth walk, something will happen, which I said before. And that's a mystery. That's the mystery of it. Something always happens. Something always changes. And I found that every time I've walked the labyrinth, I'll come out of it feeling a little bit different. And I get insights into things. So the inward movements, both spiritual and physical, and it's the purest, according to the ancients, it's the purest form of meditation that humans can take. Now, these people initially underwent a test, and they were assessed as being suitable for a real journey in a subterranean place to confront the primal darkness of the inner earth that is symbolic of one's journey, one's inner demons. And this process is aimed at connecting to something that is both terrifying, transformative, and transcendent. And it may lie dormant and unrecognised in the centre of our beings. And we may not know it's there. But it provides insights into the goal that lies within us, the who that we are, recognising ourselves. So it's about self-recognition, self-transformation, self-development. And my friend Sylvia we talked about labyrinths together a few times actually. And she said that there are times when she feels that her gold can get tangled up and meshed in with other people's rubbish, and she's got to untangle herself by walking the labyrinths to do it. And I thought that was a nice analogy. The labyrinth helps us to pause, and we can take our time walking it. Helps us to contemplate what is it that's important to us. Where am I in my life? It remains and can remain open to the insights that the process of walking the labyrinth can unfold for us. And once that insight is gained, the journey back to the entrance is undertaken. It may not happen the first time, it may not happen the 20th time, but it will happen. It can be likened to beginning to untangle the knot in the centre of a problem. And I like that idea, you have a knotty problem, walk with the labyrinths. Allow space for the gold inside the shadow to appear and give time for the realisation of insights gathered into our true nature. According to Robert Johnson, we're all born whole, except that by eating one of the fruits of the tree of knowledge, we begin to separate things into good and evil. And this is the beginning of the shadow-making process, and the shadow can represent the gold of our true nature that is buried between the layers of cultural requirements in the first half of life. Well, I think it's a good thing that we eat the fruits of the tree so that we can learn discernment and understand what is good and what's not good. And that helps to build our characters, basically. So, the shadow helps us to sort out which God-given characteristics are acceptable to society in which we live and which are not, which have to be put away to gather within the dark recesses of our personality. They become our shadow life, one that is not adequately into consciousness. But, we're taught strictly as we're young how to behave, what's desirable, how to be in this world. As we grow up, we're expected to take those things into an adulthood and use them and develop ourselves. So that's how the gift goes. So the sacred labyrinths, nature of the labyrinth involves both male and female energies. And the early Greeks used the story of the Minotaur as part of their rituals to transform young men and women into adults. So it's really a ritual transformation, like a coming out of young people coming into adulthood. So after defeating the Minotaur, Theseus invented the traditional dance called the Geranos dance, which is a lively dance performed every year for young men and women. We couldn't actually get the dance this time, so you don't get to see the dance. We couldn't find it. It mimics the twisting movements that represent the course of life itself, and it's apparently been used over there. I've spoken to a few Greeks, and they do know about the dance. So it could be still danced over there. The dance is individually moved. After the dance is individually moved through the labyrinthine movements that symbolically are designed to accept the difficulties of life, that's what it's about, There is a joyous communal movement bringing together the previously separate young men and women and symbolically marking the ultimate transformation of these youths into adults. I don't know about the women. I think they must have women too. Now, that would, but back then they probably didn't. Not in the past. So, Jungian perspectives. The individual, the unconscious, the shadow, and the inner centre. There's the man. Jung says that the labyrinth is an archetype of life, and the way to the centre lays through manifold wanderings. We always live in the labyrinths of our own making. So that's something for us to contemplate tonight. Do we live, is the way we're living your labyrinth? It could be different from my labyrinth. So we have a journey, and each of us has a way of doing it that makes up who we are, personality-wise, and where we live, and our culture, and all the rest of it. In this quote, Jung emphasised that the labyrinth as an archetypal symbol that represents the journey of life itself. And he saw the wandering, circuitous path of the labyrinth as a reflection of the manifold wanderings and complexities that we all face in our lives. He was a very wise man. The key phrase labyrinth of our own making suggests that Jung viewed the obstacles, detours, and confusions we encounter as stemming from our own psyches, thoughts, and unconscious patterns. And the labyrinth represents a psychological and existential puzzle that we must navigate, shaped by our own inner selves. And there are times when, if I walk the labyrinth, I've done that a few times at Barton, on my own, I feel another power, another energy coming to me. I feel the power of the earth and the energy of the sun and the sky and the nature around me. And that's just my experience. But, you know, I'm sure that you would have your own when you go there. And it doesn't matter whether we work out what the puzzle is, what our issues are, just that we acknowledge them is a start. So they're the puzzles that we need to navigate through the labyrinth, and they're shaped by our own inner selves. How am I going to time? About 15 minutes? Okay.
Take whatever you need.
Oh, yeah. It's quite a story, isn't it? Right. Walking the labyrinth is seen as a metaphor. I like metaphors. For traversing the complex paths of life itself. So in a way, you can walk the labyrinth and you can say, well, I just can't unravel this. I'll walk this labyrinth and let it unravel itself for me in the walking of it, the movement of it, in the experience of doing it. And particularly if it's outside in a lovely setting and you've got nature all around you. And so being an open circle means it's a break, of course, you walk out of it. A pilgrim's journey is all about finding ourselves, self-discovery and transformation. So it's to reach the unconscious, which we all have inside us, of course, we know. It's necessary to take a journey within and face the shadow, our inner centre, into the darkness to confront our own inner demons or to claim the true gold of our own true natures, which most of us don't think is gold, but they are. You also great value in exploring and coming to terms with these inner labyrinths as part of the process of achieving greater awareness, wisdom, psychological integration on the path to metaphysical development and experience. Jung said there is no linear evolution, only uniform development exists most at the beginning. Everything later points to the centre. So reaching the centre, the symbolism indicates one's youth behind and embracing adulthood. You leave it behind, you finish with you being a child, and you become an adult, become a man or a woman. And that is in developmental transition and transformation, which is what really the labyrinth story is about, transformation and coming of age in a way. We celebrate by turning 21, don't we? So the masculine aspect of it is incorporating the fears and the evils and doubts, defeating the terrible monster within. So the monster has to be conquered, and the monster lies within us, and we have to go looking for it. And this helps us to develop our individual ego consciousness. That way we become more aware of our strengths and our weaknesses. And we look at how we can deal with our weaknesses and build them up and own our strengths. This is to equip ourselves for arduous tasks that life confronts us with. And the hero's symbolic death heralds the achievement of passing the initial test. So what's the feminine part of it? Well, that's Ariadne with the yarn, the metaphorical path of yarn that safely guides the traveller back to safety and to life itself. So the female's about safety and finding yourself within that. It's a symbol of deep inner guidance and map reading. The man is out there killing the demons. The woman is in there, listening to her inner voice. Lowry, and she's the only book that you can have a look at it later if you like. It's the only book I know that's sort of a novel type story about a labyrinth. It's quite an interesting story. Lowry said that when you come back next time to visit her, bring Ariadne's thread with you. So she runs these labyrinths. She's actually Australian. She's down the South Coast somewhere. And bring Ariadne's thread. And I encourage them to make one of their own, a string or flower. And I thought about that, and I thought the Catholic Church does that, doesn't it, with the rosary? That's sort of like a symbol of deep inner guidance that you use, Catholics use. And I like that idea that the Catholics have for that. So, timelessness is something that you encounter inside the labyrinths. That means kairos in, I don't even know how to pronounce that, K-A-I-R-O-S, and it's poised but unpredictably between beginnings and ends. So if you abandon the fixed plan, you wait for the moment to arrive and then act. And kairos exists the potential, the mode for improvisation. And there's always going to be improvisation. Nothing can be fixed in life. It's responding to a sudden opening of the fabric of time. And you can experience that as you learn to walk that labyrinth. You can feel that spirit, fabric of a sudden opening, and something different is happening. And no theory can enable or plan for it. It just happens. And when it does, you wait for a moment and then you act. The potential's always there, but first you've got to find the place. And in this place, the past is dead and the future's a mirage. When the opening appears, it must be passed through without hesitation in the moment. And that's really important. The Greeks compared it to the moment in weaving when the sun to its threads on the loom. When a gap opens in the warp of the cloth, and the weaver must draw the yarn through to make the pattern. But Lowry asks, does this space ever exist other than in our dreams? And we can through the labyrinths. So it is also like a mandala, which John pointed out. An incomplete circle spirals into another incomplete circle, allowing time and experience to find your own shadow and own it. And Robert Johnson said the religious process consists of restoring the wholeness of the personality. The word religion means to re-relate, to put back together again and to heal the wounds of separation. Therefore, it's clear we must restore the wholeness of the personality that was lost in cultural ideals by walking the labyrinths. If that's our problem, we can live in a state of dividedness It grows more and more painful through our own evolution. And by walking the labyrinth, we can allow that process to unfold and unravel. So when we find our centre in the labyrinth walk, we can work towards the completion in the last quarter of life, which we're all heading towards. So that is the story of the labyrinth, and the actual practical side of it is the meditation part. So after supper, we will do a little short meditation. I'm going to hand out all the labyrinths and these some just read them out, some little thoughts to take with you. Where am I in my own labyrinth? Am I at the entrance, still carrying the full weight of my roles and routines? Am I in the turning paths, confused and unsettled, or have I arrived briefly at a point of stillness? What am I avoiding meeting? The shadow does not announce itself, but is often visible in what provokes us to most strongly, or in what we take most pains to keep at bay. What might the centre hold for me? Not a solution necessarily, but perhaps an insight, a renewal, or simply the recognition that the journey has not, in fact, been without direction. So they're the thoughts. And when we come back, John has a poem. He wrote a poem about the labyrinths, didn't you, John? And I think it'd be nice if you said the poem to us before we do our labyrinth journey. Okay. So save your questions and your comments.
Sharing your experience, these are God's receiving. So we've got you to the car that you're working on. Tomorrow, World Labyrinth, we'll venture out to the labyrinth, experience and Christianity and hold it. You don't know where you're going to contribute. You'll get the end of being there in your reach. It's awesome. Will be. If you have a PhD, what you do is there's a level of the graduating. There's a map on very stuff, and we on the paper needs very here involved, but I don't think we go. The learning knowledge experience nothing. And it's trying to make a choice. This experience opens up faith, and values, safeties, on the journey, and we can explore with Father God together. Or we can not because when we get up to the process, right, you're looking for that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to we'll hand out. I don't know how many of you want to walk the labyrinth. Come tomorrow, but you don't have to. John, would you be able to hand out the things? You just get John to put the. So tomorrow we meet at the actual labyrinth, which is you drive into the place, and you just keep following the path, and it'll say a little sign that says events, and you just follow them around, and you'll see the cars there, and the labyrinth itself is kind of just behind some little bushes, and there it is sitting in a field. Have you been to it, John?
No.
Oh, right. Okay. But you have, haven't you, Robert?
I have. Could I make a comment?
Yeah.
Are you happy to? There are other things you want to say?
No, make a comment for sure.
Okay. There's a couple of things. One of the what's my close people there?
Robbie's talking.
It's all right. One of the interesting things about the labyrinth is that it takes you almost to the center, and you think, oh, like that was easy. I've got there. But then it takes you all the way back out almost to the start. And that's really quite a symbolic thing for the journey of life,
It is.
because we imagine we've accomplished something,
Yeah.
but it's only in appearance.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that we can get 90% of the way and then have to retrace our steps. Well, we're not retracing our steps. We're moving. We're always moving forward in the labyrinth, but but the forward movement takes us back to nearly where we're back and forth, and there's this iterative process. I did want to. I'm interested in your thoughts on that, Kirstin, but I wanted to just first mention something really interesting about the labyrinth at Bath, and that is that at the centre of it, they went to the Pilbara, and they found a big piece of stone, it weighs a ton or something, that's 3 billion years old. It might be 4 billion years old.
Thank you for mentioning that. I forgot about it.
And so what the symbolism of having something so incredibly old, like the Pilbara region in Australia is one of the oldest parts of the earth. That's like, the earth is constantly churning up with continental drift over that billion year time scale, but the Pilbara has always been there. And so you've got this symbol of deep time, and like that's a quarter of the way back to the Big Bang. And so just thinking about the age of the universe, like this, it's one of the contemplative factors in walking the labyrinth. Describing it as you did, as an open meditation. It can be a way to meditate on deep time, and I suppose on the ephemeral nature.
The time standing still, and you're in that window
Of life. Yeah. And then the other favorite of the labyrinth story from the Greek myth is that we have this slight paradox that when you get into it, you can't find the way out. But that's so it's a maze. It's not a labyrinth. Although, except the word labyrinth does in practice have quite a double meaning. Like the labyrinth as you've described it has a single path, but in common usage, a labyrinth is often thought to mean like that like the maze, and so the labyrinth that Theseus.
Well, that would have been much more complicated. Yeah, labyrinth, wouldn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, those are just
But it's very interesting because I think as you walk the labyrinth, I've only walked the Barton one, so I can't. We did visit Chartres Cathedral, but I don't believe we walked the labyrinth, did we, John? It was covered up. I think they were doing something to it. So we didn't get to walk that labyrinth. Somehow, for me, the Barton labyrinth, it just lifts you up. It lifts you into another state. It just the simple walking of it, and the feeling of the earth under your feet, and the sky above, and nature around you. It's like I walked into it yesterday thinking, I haven't got any issues, I'm just going to walk it. I ended up thinking of lots of things. And then when I sat on that stone in the middle, it was really awesome.
And it's surrounded by a big little garden as well.
Absolutely, it is.
With plants from the Middle East and helping them.
And that's so special. And we'll walk down there into that garden after the labyrinth, and we'll go and sit there. We'll be able to do that, won't we, Jean? Yeah. And we'll go down there and we'll sit and think more as more people go and walk the labyrinth and walk down there. because I think that's also part of it, don't you think?
Yes.
Yes.
And that psychological dimension of nearly reaching your goal, but then having to finding that actually achieving something is takes a lot longer than you had first imagined.
And the labyrinth is really, well, it can be like an awakening, an insight, insight, something you think, oh yes, I didn't know that, or I've had my thoughts straightened out because I'm in a muddle or something like that. It depends on where your particular way of being is on that time that you do that labyrinth.
And it's got that quality of initiation about it.
Oh, definitely.
Like you were talking about the Theseus story.
Yeah.
And I've heard that does have quite a connection to practices of initiation. And that's such an interesting concept in the sense that it's something very traditional, but it's something largely lost in our culture. So like it's something that creates a distinction between childhood and adulthood.
Yes, and that's what the labyrinth is, the Theseus story is about, isn't it?
It is about
coming into
initiation
manhood.
to adulthood.
Yeah.
And but then failed initiation, like for Theseus to forget to change the sails.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Well, he was a bit of an idiot.
He was. He definitely was.
And yet a hero. So
Yeah. A hero and an idiot at the same time, yes.
well, that often goes together, doesn't it?
Does. Oh dear, do I need to put this microphone on or can you hear me all right?
You must have had a lot of these.
Okay,
I think it's better on.
there you are. On now. He needs it for the broadcast. Oh, that's really good insights, Robbie. Thank you for sharing that. Has anybody got any comments on what Robbie just said? I guess that you might have comments after you walk the labyrinth.
Forgetting to change. Okay. I guess what you said about forgetting to change the sails and abandoning Ariadne, I mean that's kind of a labyrinthine act as well. You go, you slay the Minotaur, you confront some demons, but there are still so many mistakes to make. And if in initiation stories, the initiation is the beginning of the adventures and the mistakes and the growth. It's not the end. So yeah, that was fantastic. Really interesting thoughts.
Also to have the insight to take the thread with you. Because if you don't have the thread, it's going to be hard to get out. So you have to know when you go into it to have the thread. That the feminine part of this is to have a thread to the insight towards transformation and not be afraid of meeting the monster in there, of slaying the monster in your own way. Robbie,
does anybody have anything else to say?
Any other comments?
Make some comments about the connection between the labyrinth and the mandalas.
Oh yes, Pam was talking to me about that in the break. The labyrinth is sort of it's a circle, and circles are very, very archetypal in our lives, and mandalas are circles. So Jung was involved in both circles and mandalas. So I think that what we need to do is to be aware that in the circle things can happen. So, to draw a mandala. Does anybody do any mandala drawing? Robert does, I do. John does. It's a way of putting down your inner feelings or way of a problem maybe. I've actually solved problems by drawing a mandala because I can see the answer sitting there in front of me, which is quite remarkable in many ways. Mandalas are circular and so are labyrinths. With a mandala, you don't walk it. you draw it, and you're stationary. And you can use all sorts of different colours and you know, oil crayons or paints or whatever you want to use. And you can put whatever you want inside your circle. And even go outside the circle just to know that the circle is there, and the circle represents who you are inside. Every single cell is a circle, and circles are so important. The sun and the moon are circles, and the earth is a circle, and so are all the stars. The circle is obviously a very important symbol for us. But I think that with the labyrinth, it's an incomplete circle. So the mandala's a circle that's complete. But the labyrinth is not complete because there's an opening in and out. So it's not completely closed circle. It's not a closed circle, it's an open, incomplete circle. And that to me, that signifies how, like what you were saying, Robbie, you move out of the labyrinth, you go to the exit, and you know that it's not complete because life is still there to live it. And you've got other challenges to do, which you can then take back into the labyrinth on another walk if you need to.
I feel an issue in terms of things not being as they seem. Like, you know, it seems when you enter the labyrinth that you're going straight to the end and it's only a short walk, but then you discover that it's actually a lot longer than it seems.
A lot longer.
When you first look at it. And to me, that's also a symbol for the use of parable within religion and mythology. That you know, things are not what they seem. That stories do have concealed meanings.
Thank you.
And so that that the initiation process often involves the revealing of the concealed meanings. So, like, I haven't really heard if the walking of the labyrinth has actually been a practice in terms of initiation, but
well, it was in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
But whether it is today in the Christian tradition, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to explore the deeply Catholic tradition and the High Church of England tradition, because they're the ones that have their labyrinths in their churches and places like that. Particularly, you know, like Chartres Cathedral. But we've got labyrinths here as part of a church setting. Yeah, the hospice has one, hasn't it? Yeah. And Clare Holland House.
and St Ninian's United
And
Church
yeah.
in Lyneham.
Yeah, so there's
And Holy Cross is in Hackett.
well, I think for a small we are a city, but you know, 11 labyrinths in one city is quite a lot. I don't think any other city in Australia has that many labyrinths. So we're a special breed here in Canberra to have that many.
I think we went to Tumut in a little country town, and we were absolutely amazed that there was a beautiful labyrinth. It was to commemorate the fallen people who died in.
How lovely.
The local people.
Yeah, what a beautiful way of commemorating the fallen.
Robert and I went to Tumut to catch up with our art friend.
Yeah.
And we went for a walk around through the park, and there was this amazing labyrinth. It was to commemorate the people in that area that had fallen in the war, that died, and so it was all showing their names along the way, and so it was really lovely.
And in some ways, that would be like taking those names with you into the labyrinth and walking them, and those fallen soldiers coming with you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though you didn't know them, still their presence can still be
Yeah, it was,
there if you're very respectful.
so it was very moving. It was
Very moving.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's really lovely.
Yeah, that was quite large, like the size of this room. And it was quite a substantial structure, paved in brick and gardens around it and all that sort of thing. So it was quite a substantial edifice as part of the council park there.
Wow. Yeah, so I mean, there are various ways we can use labyrinths, aren't there? I brought the book in, the only book that I have ever found. I don't know whether anyone picked it up and had a look at it. It's my book, so I'm not lending it to anyone. But it's called The Labyrinths, and it's by Joanna Lowry, who is an Australian author living on the south coast of New South Wales. And she moved down there after a very distressing divorce, and she decided that she would construct a labyrinth in her backyard as a way of working through her grief. And the story is a bit torturous in terms of what she went through, but that was she saw that as her way of being able to always go out and walk the labyrinth and clear her mind. And I've actually found that. Has anybody else who walks labyrinths found that you can actually have your mind cleared by walking the labyrinth? Yes, you have, John. Thank you. I'm glad somebody has, because I do. I'm thinking it's freaky. Yes, I think it's a. No, it doesn't. But then it does anything really, unless you make your mind up to make it last. I mean, that's what life is about, isn't it? Having experiences and learning. Yeah, that's right. Moving.
Walk the maze, and that's a circular formation as well.
Yeah. And the circle is so important, and shapes are so important. I mean, all sorts of things are really important, like shapes. There's so many shapes in the world, but circles are very, very prevalent.
I found it a humbling sort of experience, actually, because you say, oh, here it is, it's less than the size of this room. Oh, you will go up around the loop and in the middle and out again. But it's like 300 paces or something. Compulsive ISTJ counter, I have troubles going into a meditative state.
But that would be
But
ideal for you.
it's quite humbling to know that after, the 300, then you're really only halfway there, because you've got to appreciate this ancient rock in the centre and then all the way back again in what you thought was really quite a small space.
A very special space, the Barton Labyrinth, isn't it? Don't you think?
Sorry.
It's a very special space.
Oh, yes, indeed.
It's very spiritual. I find it very spiritual anyway. I think we need to walk it, not take it lightly, walk into it with a very deep sense of respect for the power of it and for the nature around us, and just to know that we're part of that nature and that we can enter into this space, as, like you said, the window of time can stop, and here you are, being in the now, in that moment.
Well, nice thing about it too is that it's quite a distance from any road. You don't have a lot of traffic noise, so forth there.
Yeah, it's lovely. And then there's the meditative garden.
The Bible garden.
The Bible
Yeah,
garden,
sure.
where all the trees are given.
So you can look at the olives and grapes and the mustards and so forth that are all mentioned in the Bible.
Yes, so it's an amazing garden there. Whose idea was that, Robert? Has it got a history about that?
Our friend Vernon Bailey is a pioneer of that.
Oh, yeah.
He spent much of his dying years gardening and pulling out weeds and so on.
Wow.
And of course, as part of the ACCC, the Australian Centre for Christianity and Culture establishment.
Yes, it's really amazing.
I'll see if we can pick up a document tomorrow about that.
That'd be nice.
It's got the history of it and so forth.
Because it is an amazing. The garden is amazing as well as the labyrinth itself, and you can walk around that garden and read all each plant has got a Bible verse to it, hasn't it?
If you head for the giant cross, the Christian cross, then you can't go far wrong. So you can see it from a great distance.
Well, you drive in from the street and you just follow the path around, and there's a sign. Well, yesterday the sign events, and you go around to that way and just keep on going until you get to the labyrinth.
If you zoom in on Google Maps, into Bath and the early end of King's Avenue Bridge, it's actually an oval that's called Google calls it Canberra Labyrinth. It's on the map there.
Oh, right. Of course of that. How amazing is that?
So, can you tell us anything more, Kirstin, about World Labyrinth Day? Because I imagine that there'll be hundreds of people there walking the labyrinth tomorrow for World Labyrinth Day.
We'd like to think so, but no, I don't think that's going to happen in Canberra. I don't think a lot of people do think about labyrinths in
One year, and we were there with the Saturday meeting, and there was a group of people saying, "Did you know it was Labyrinth Day today?" But that was pretty good. And there was a group, people from Canberra, and they're all coming in your meeting. Yes, so you don't have.
No, we don't know. You're right. We could turn up and there's a big crowd, but so far,
I do have other friends. Like I have one friend who always has a labyrinth party at the labyrinth for New Year's Day.
oh,
Yeah,
there at that one.
that's right. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
She's very old.
isn't it?
Yeah, she's very old now.
What an amazing thing, you know, to have that. I've never heard of anybody having a labyrinth party.
But it
Oh. Well, we better get on and draw these labyrinths, hadn't we? So all of us, John, can you give us your poem, and then we'll do a little quick meditation, and then we'll draw our labyrinths. We've been talking too long, haven't we? Not watching the time.
Is that okay? Sorry. Well, this is fine. Can you hear? It was in 2009, some time ago, and the Jung Society advertised this, and I was given a lift up to 25 acres of bushland by the Yass River, 45 minutes from Canberra, and there was the labyrinth on this hilltop in bricks, beautifully done, based on the labyrinth at Charter Cathedral, is a classic one, which you saw. Well, it's this year, and so I walked it, not knowing what to expect. So I wrote about it, said nothing is not a zero in a labyrinth's tale. I stepped upon this serpent's tail with soft-soled feet and trepidation, and scanned its convoluted length to where its centered, six-eyed head beckoned as final destination. To some, just a twisting path of brick in flat repose on the hilltop high, a task to complete and question why, yet gain perchance from data sharing some insight or a regretful sigh. I was content to just be and enjoy, open to vibrations more rare, and journey the trail as a pilgrim, alert to possible sacraments, but without expectations or care. An iconic trail representing all journeys, this serpentine path flowing to and fro, coiled like the great Shakti Kundalini, divine energy, supreme consciousness. This labyrinth has latent magic, I know. The walkers all look down the path and then make each turn quick or gentle, looking to their ultimate destination as arrival at some place terrestrial, or one with gifts more ephemeral. I stopped my walk along the path and looked up, I know not why. Along the path of bricks I stopped, surveyed the gentle scene before and above a pale blue cloudless sky. And around me the moving people with gentle stroll or striding gait, coming together and moving apart, all intent on private thoughts of questions, answers, and of fate. And suddenly I saw with eyes anew men and women, yet not the same, a kindred spirits on a karmic path, and greatly moved for us all was I. Souls young and old on this earth plane. So greatly moved, I felt transported to some wondrous state of being, which, relieved of mortal flesh, revealed a new lightness of spirit and a clear inner eye for seeing, lasting minutes or seconds maybe, transforming in a wondrous way labyrinths, people, trees, and birds. All made me smile with delight, a feeling holding me still in its sway. Then to the center I ventured further, visiting each of its 6 serpent's eyes, through mineral, animal, vegetation, to human, angelic, and mystery domains. And in that last domain my interest lies. With advancing age, life's mystery grows. Facts and figures are holding less sway. And on these lovingly assembled bricks, I had looked up, transfixed, to behold one of life's mysteries come into play. I experienced nothing, said someone in the concluding sharing that day. But nothing is 2 words. No thing. No thing experience. What and why not? A bit of learning we all took away. Back to the car and drive down the hill and the end of this labyrinth tale, to face again life's ups and downs, but open always to vibrations more rare, as well on the serpent's tail. And that's it.
Oh, thank you, John. That's lovely. And it exemplifies, it exemplifies what we were just talking about. Actually, your speech was, your poem was just almost like a summary of what we've been talking about. I hope that you will go to the labyrinth, and not maybe if you can't go tomorrow, but I hope that you will go. And if you come tomorrow, we'll welcome you with open arms. We'd love to see you. We're not starting till 12 because one of the reasons I suggested to Jean we start at 12 is because our last few years we've been starting at 10. But then I realised that World Labyrinth Day is at 1 o'clock in all countries around the world. And so by us walking around the labyrinths between 12 and 1 will bring us in alignment with all the other people unseen that we don't know around the world who are also walking the labyrinth. And I just think that's a nice concept. I think that we're sharing our labyrinth experience with unknown people doing the same thing. So that what we'll do is we'll meet at 12, we'll come in. Jean is going to do a wonderful lunch. And we're going to do that before 1 o'clock or after?
That's up to you, Kirstin. You're running the show.
If they feel hungry, we can have lunch before. If you would rather do it afterwards, it's usually good to walk on an empty stomach, isn't it? No. It's not exactly strenuous. Quite right. Well, oh, very nice. Lovely. Well, we're going to have a nice time, whoever.
Thank you very much, Kirstin, for building up with what we've already know. So the people thinking about coming tomorrow, you haven't quite made up your mind, but you're very welcome anyway to turn up. but we'd love to have you coming along because it's a very interesting place to hang out in. And we have some goodies. Robert's organised some nice sandwiches from Hudson restaurant. So it should be an enticement in itself, let alone the view. It's beautiful there. We've been there a few times. We'd like to give Kirstin these flowers. Nice. Oh, it's leaking. I'll give you the towel. Yeah. And there's your certificate. You've probably got a suitcase full of certificates from all your studies.
That'd be nice.
That's right. And so you can, so there at the gardens tomorrow, there's a lot of beautiful plants as well, not only the labyrinth. And so explore the Bible gardens there, have a little picnic. We've got the little picnic lunch. And Kirstin will introduce us to the process of actually walking the labyrinth. Also, we have just thinking about Dorothea's group, the 6 weeks dream group workshop. It'll be over at Wesley Church in Forest, so we'll let you know about that. There have been, it's a Jung Society institution for many years. So see website for details. Dorothea is a Jungian therapist over many years. So it's very experienced to lead dream groups. It's amazing. So that's for 6 weeks. And there's a handout over there if you're really interested in that. And that starts after Mother's Day. Mother's Day is the 10th of May. And people are saying, well, we can't come because that's Mother's Day. We've got to do something special on Mother's Day. And next month, on Friday the 5th of June, we meet here again as usual for Robbie Tulip. Over here, Robbie. It's our music man and also lovely presentations. He'll be talking about Ross White's memorial titled Carl Jung and a Paradigm Change. Ross White was a long-time member of the Jung Society, a president and life member and a generous benefactor of the society. So when he died, he left us some money, and that's been able us to continue on the way we have been able to continue on. Without him, I think we would have finished. So he's very important to us. So Robbie Tulip, of course, is a regular presenter here, a thoughtful and prolific theologian, librarian, and musician of renown. So he's a very special man over there. Thank you for your efforts. Of course, this is a great time to join as a member or to renew your membership. Just $75 for the year, February to 2027, or $60 for senior or concession. That gives you free entry to the Friday meetings and other juicy benefits like taking any of those books home. And check the website for up-to-date details of these and other events. So good night and thank you for coming along and